This podcast may contain adult themes and strong language.
You stepped onto Busker's corner.
I've been having some hard traveling, I thought you knowed.
I'm pretty passionate about busking. You need stuff that's raw and organic. And I think that's where busking fits in, is it's raw and organic. And I have a very love-hate relationship with technology. And my job that usually takes care of the bread and butter when I'm not busking is IT contract work. I generally don't get online and do a lot of Zoom busking and stuff like that, face busking and stuff, because I like that human contact. I like seeing people. I like collecting stories. It's hard to do that on Facebook. The biggest payoff for me is when I'll play a song for somebody and they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this song from childhood, and it's something that nobody plays. That's the big payoff for me when I busk, is connecting with people.
Welcome to Busker's Corner. I'm your host, Robert, and we'll hear the rest of this story and more on the topic of Nomadic in just a moment.
Greetings, your co-host Fable here, and on this episode, you'll hear 4 stories from 5 awesome street performers, all on the topic of Nomadic. For many artists, being a nomad is deeply ingrained into their busking practice. And today we've assembled 5 great performers to come and tell us all about that lifestyle on the road, rambling, traveling, hoboing, busking, everything nomadic.
When we met this first storyteller, he was passing through Santa Fe on a busking vacation with his family. He had a passion for hobo culture and activism, so we weren't too surprised to find out while speaking with him that he had served on the board of directors at the Guthrie Museum in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a number of years. Welcome, Tim Joad, a.k.a. Tim Justice, in a story called Hobo Code.
I go by the name of Tim Joad. It comes from Tom Joad from the Grapes of Wrath. Because it's kind of my mission to go out there and to try to make a difference and try to build people up. But with Woody Guthrie, he spoke to injustices. He's shown a light. He came from not 2 hours from where I grew up. We moved to Oklahoma when I was very young. So I consider Oklahoma my home. Because I grew up hearing tales of the Depression. I grew up hearing tales of the Dust Bowl. They're very much a part of me.
Killing charge. Tom Joad come a-walking down the road, poor boy. Tom Joad come a-walking down the road.
One of the things I've tried to promote in my whole thing has been the hobo culture and hobo code. And for those that don't know, hobos had a special code. A lot of them couldn't read or write, so they'd have a bunch of symbols to kind of direct them and stuff like that. And I'm trying to revitalize that, because that's an era of pop culture from the Depression that we've kind of forgotten. Hobo culture, and one of the reasons, and I think because the Great Depression, you had a lot of people looking for jobs, and that's really when it kind of kicked into high gear. And the problem is they would get, this wasn't the current time, they'd get flyers for a job, but by the time they actually make it out there, the jobs were all gone. So you'd have a lot of the hobo camps, you'd have a lot of the people gathered around, and you also had the union camps at the same time, because we were also fighting a lot of labor battles like that. So you would have musicians like Woody Guthrie that would head into those camps. They'd lift the spirits of the people there. They'd sing the songs. They'd get together. The thing with Woody was that he did travel, and that was one of the things about it. Because he played in the jungle camps, and he was very much a busker, even though he didn't present that. He had opportunities to have more set gigs. He kind of embodied a lot of that restless spirit. The New Deal era, and he covered a lot. When he covered the WPA, he covered the CCC, and the things that people were doing to rebuild America. I think that ties into busking, because unless there is pressure from below, they will never, ever make any serious change. And I believe that it's the job of the busker. I believe it's the job of the folk musician to do what Woody Guthrie did and to deliver that message. If I may, I'd like to clarify a little bit, because it's a big differentiation for a lot of people. A lot of people think hobos are bums. Hobos are travelers, and they usually travel for work. Sometimes hobos will bum, but kind of work first. Tramps are a little bit less inclined to work, but they'll take work if they get it.
While we're on the subject of hard work, I just want to say that I always was a man to work. I was born working, and I worked my way up by hard work. I ain't ever got nowhere yet, but I got there by hard work. Work of the hardest kind. I've been down and I've been out.
And a bum is not necessarily a traveler. A lot of bums live in fixed locations. And I do think, as far as in spreading hobo culture, it's important that people know the difference, because there's a lot of bias when they dismiss somebody as a hobo.
Go to sleep, you weary hobo.
They think that means that person is trying to leech off society, when all they're trying to do is get an honest job.
Listen to the steel rails humming. That's a hobo's lullaby.
I personally see the policy of like taking care of them a little bit, maybe throwing them a little bit off the tip jar and like that. I found that there's a very karmic thing in how you're busking, and that how you treat people will very much come back to you.
This is the Ballad of a Dime. The beggar, he sat on the street corner with a selling apples for a dime. He reached inside of his empty pockets, but he didn't have a thin little dime. Thank you, Tim Joad, for explaining a little of the nuances behind the scenes. It's interesting how busking and hobo culture have been intertwined since ancient times.
Playing behind us now is Tim Joad himself. And if you'd like to hear more of Tim's music and to connect with him, please check out our show notes, where you'll find all the links to do so. While you're there, you'll notice that the show notes also contain links to all the other wonderful artists who shared their stories on this episode. Now it's time to get back to those awesome performers and their true stories of nomadic busking life.
Our next guest is a modern-day hobo who's lived many life stories leading up to this one as a nomadic busker. Here he shares a story of how his life changed when he discovered busking, in a story we call Herkimer Diamond in the Rough. These are some of his songs playing behind him. Please welcome Dwight Crowley.
You know, we're young. We know what they're saying. Then we fall in love. Song takes on a whole new meaning. But when we lose that love, yeah, that's when we truly understand the music.
What do I consider myself doing right now in life? Surviving. Survival of the fittest, you know? And I don't know if I'm fit enough. I am Dwight guy with Dwight hair, Dwight Joseph Crowley. When I started busking, I just started playing guitar about a year. So the idea of playing music for money and stuff was very far off. I started playing the guitar at 51 years old to entertain myself and maybe write a song or two. But I found myself living in a small town with my ex-wife. So we weren't no longer together anymore. There was all these strings, and those strings began to feel like acres. You know, so I did something really rock and roll. I grabbed my guitar and my duffel bag, and I took off down the highway. I got 2 rides, got me all the way to Albuquerque, and it's pretty dangerous to hitchhike out there. And somebody told me, suggested riding the rail runner up to Santa Fe. So that sounded good, romantic train ride through the desert. That sounded cool. So when I got to the depot, some guy saw my guitar and asked me if I was going up to Santa Fe to do some busking. I said, I don't know what that is. And he said, that's where they stand out on the streets and play guitar and people throw money in the hat. I said, I don't know nothing about that, but I definitely want to check into that. And I saw all these people, that were making money. I seen a whole bunch of people just dropping. I was like, that got to be $200 there, So I wanted in on that. So after the 3rd day, I finally got me a busker's permit. And I sat out there, and I had these little rocks that I was giving away because I only knew 3 chords, 2 songs, and I didn't play any of them very good. So I was giving away these little rocks to kind of supplement the fact that, I couldn't play. But the first person come along, gave me $1, and I gave him a little rock. The second person came along, gave me $1, I gave him a little rock. The next person came along, gave me a $5 bill. So I reached down in my bag there, and I got him a nice little Herkimer diamond and handed it to him. Said, thank you. He said, thank you. He come back 10 minutes later with a $100 bill in his hand. Says, can I get another one of those crystals for my wife? I said, yes, sir. And from that moment on, I knew I was going to be a busker.
I figured out while I'm waiting here for some homeless girl to come take me home, or some homeless guy to come by and get me high. Either way, I thought I'd play this song I wrote. It's called The Blues Crooner of Santa Fe.
And I spent the next 7 weeks living on the streets there in Santa Fe, which sounds bad. But the reality was I was playing with people who've been playing for 20 and 30 years, showing me things. The education I was getting in that 7 weeks, I couldn't afford to buy.
But it's slow today. Standing on the corners of Santa Fe, singing my heart out every day.
Thank you, Dwight Crowley. $100 bill on your first night and 7 weeks of free music lessons. Sounds like Busker's paradise. He's down in Florida currently surviving, and we at Busker's Corner wish him the best of luck.
Our third story is told by an incredible nomadic duo. They've performed all over the world in several different countries, on many street corners, as well as many stages. Please welcome back to Busker's Corner, Lone Bear and Georgia Ollier, with a story called Long Way From Home.
Some people say that there's no competition, but at the end of the day, if everybody's trying to work and make money, of course there's some competitions. Some people, they're more competitive.
get the whole thing of like local buskers versus touring buskers.
I'm a long, long way from home. Long, long, long way from home.
I don't know, for you guys, when we traveled through Santa Fe, you guys were probably the local buskers, and we might have been invading your territory because we were just passing through. It's a really hard balance, I think, to make. And because if someone's going to the same corner every day for, say, you know, a month or 2 months, and then new kids on the street come along and they just appear and they're in your spot, I mean, yeah, you'd feel a bit challenged and a bit threatened, probably. Every place is different, I think.
New Orleans, there's like Grandpa Elliot.
Grandpa Elliot Small has been a street musician in New Orleans for decades, occupying a corner on Royal Street.
I'ma blues you until I lose you.
This year, pushing 70 years of age, he made his recording debut, performed on The Tonight Show, and in front of 40,000 people at Dodger Stadium.
He's been busking there for like 100 years in the same spot, right?
Well, I need
so we didn't know we went busk right in front of his spot.
Well, I need some woman to tell me what's wrong with me.
He just came along and he's blind, right? I don't know what he heard we were playing there, but he just came over and then sat like on his spot there. We moved on. Yeah, we just moved on because I thought, well, let's move on because he's not gonna move on. That's his spot, like for 100 years. And that's when the point Georgia made about local buskers and traveling buskers.
I'm a poor boy, I'm a long ways from.
I think it seems like the ones that travel sometimes they're more flexible about giving up the spot or sharing the spot because they know it's hard. When you're in a different place, you don't know where to go, where to busk, what time is best. Seems like it's easier to get along with the ones that travel more and they're on the road. Let's say they're more open-minded. Yeah, I had problem in Santa Fe. There was a guy there, don't need to say the name. He would get a bit angry when we were playing there. He would count the minutes. You played already for 2.5 hours. I don't know, we had like 2 hour spot. Now you've been there for 2.5 hours, like nothing big.
It seemed big at the time, as it always does, you know. Yeah, that's the way that you make a living, and that's really what you depend on, is getting there at the right time, or needing to wait a couple of hours before for your turn to play, or that sort of thing. So it seems big at the time, but looking back on these, it's just part of it, I think, part of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Why mom don't like the boogie woogie? Well, don't care what
Thank you, Georgia and Lone Bear. It's so great to have you guys back on Busker's Corner. Thanks for sharing your adventures, nomadic faux pas, and all those things to look out for when you're a traveling street musician.
Our final story is from a guy who's been hanging out a lot this season on Busker's Corner, and we're so glad to have him. He is a jazz band leader, singer-songwriter, street poet who is very familiar with the nomad life. Please welcome Dusty DeLeo in a story called Jug Life.
I tell everybody who's going to go gas jug, you have approximately 27 minutes before the cops show up. Gas jugging, the vehicle at the gas station, you play music with a gas jug and your CDs, and you're like, hey, we're just a traveling band. Can you spare some gas? Usually takes like half hour. Sometimes the cops get called and you got to talk your way out of it. Usually they leave you alone and just tell you to get the fuck out of there. Every now and then they'll fill your tank. That happened once. I charmed these cops into filling their tank full of gas. I don't even know how the fuck I got away with it. Dreadlocks, braids, little shells in my hair, and fuck. My other friend had super long hair too, and then we had another car with these girls with dreadlocks, and we all had dogs and all these instruments. I've never been through Texas, and I've definitely, it's got an aura, and I'm sure a lot of it's pretty real, but it could be a little scary going through Texas. We were at this gas station, gas jugging, and this cop shows up. He's like, what the hell are y'all doing out here? We didn't make enough money on the last show, and we're trying to make it out to New Mexico to make it to the next show. And he's just kind of scratching his head. He's like, what kind of music y'all play? I was like, and I knew a few good old-time American tunes. I was like, we play old-time American music. And he's like, all right. And then he starts looking through my car, and I got like a guitar and a banjo and a dog and a skateboard. And he's like, is that a banjo? And I was like, yes, sir, it is. I was like, do you like banjo music? Would you like to hear a song? He's like, well, maybe. I was like, can I take my banjo out and play you a song? He's like, well, I guess I got time for one. And I played him that song. I was like, I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away in the morning. And he's like, I sure like the banjo, and I sure like that song. He's like, hold up. And then 2 other cop cars show up, and they're talking to the other fucking car, and we're just like, we're going to jail. We're fucked. We're all going to jail. We're just a bunch of hippies in Texas in the middle of nowhere, and fuck. Like, we're so fucked. We're beyond fucked. Weird. Yep. So he comes up, and he's like, well, I talked to my superior officer, and he's like, this might sound a little weird, but follow us to the police station. We can fill you up on our tank. And so I checked in with him. I was like, so you're not going to arrest us? He's like, no, we'd much rather y'all just get down on your way. We enjoyed y'all's music, but we could see you need some help. We'll give you a hand. And so we followed him to the police station, and we filled our tank, and we got the fuck out of there. It was scary. They were very nice, but I usually try to have enough gas money to get through Texas now.
That's how a song was born. Soft evening breeze. Song was born, and then the rain came from the sky, sang a lullaby, then blues came. High from my side, to hearts beating rhyme, with the rhythm of the time. That's how a song was born.
Thanks again, Dusty DeLeo, and let that be a lesson to everyone. Make sure you have enough gas money to get across Texas. or Nebraska or Indiana or, well, you know, just stay safe. And that concludes another episode of Busker's Corner. This one called Nomadic, with a story about hobo culture, a story about becoming hobo culture, a story of nomad versus local, and a story of a stranger in a strange land.
Thanks to all the wonderful artists who shared their stories today on this episode of Busker's Corner. Please remember, all of their links can be found in our show notes, and we hope that you check them out. If you've been enjoying our Busker's Corner podcast, please let us know. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit us up on our social media accounts.
Join us next time for more true stories from the world of street performance. But for now, we're stepping off Busker's Corner.
That's like a sweet jungle beat, right in the basement street. That's how jazz was born. Someone played a whale, all up and down and scale. That's how jazz was born. Simply play what they like.